Did they ever find out what the story was behind the death of Mickey?
Yeah, but well, it was some stories. And back then, before I even got more knowledge, they was always saying, well, Jeff Ford had Mickey killed.
Don't sound right.
That don't sound right to me, but because the whole nation, and at the time, me not being knowledge or taught what really went on back then, I was still young, so we grew with that concept. And a lot of my brothers said Jeff Ford didn't kill Mickey. Jeff Ford wouldn't have did that.
We don't get out like
We
that.
don't get out like. And then I go back to the ancient brothers that I know of, and I had to sit down with them. I'm not gonna say no names,
Right.
And they said, brother, that's a whole beast. That ain't got nothing to do with Jeff. So that what made me believe, because he was so into all these organizations, that an outside source had something to do with it. You best believe the people that did things for Mick, that served 20, 30 years, it's more than what you think.
OG, two letters that define respect. I created the original OGs to document the forgotten parts of American history. I want to recognize and give a voice to the men and women that have climbed to the top of their game. The men and women this marquee have been authenticated as original OGs. Welcome to my world, a world of the originals, the unique. Welcome to the original OGs. Welcome to the original OGs, and I'm your host, OG Mr. Rick. We're going to take you back a little bit today. We're going to have a second conversation concerning the Egyptian Cobras. This is very interesting because what we do is, if we hear one story, then we back it up with another story, and that's the situation that we have today. We want to take you deeper into a situation because sometimes the history gets a little murky, and we want to bring it back so that we can connect it to show that, hey, well, this is what I said, and this is how it connects to this. And we try to bring it to the forefront to whereas in the end, we give you as much truth as we can. We're going to bring my brother Aaron back on, and then we have old school. This is real OG here. This Napo, he going to take us back. We like people to come on that can bear witness to what actually existed. So I'm going to start with my brother Aaron, and we're going to go back a little bit. We don't want to go back too deep because we want to move forward here.
Well, like I said before in the first show, my daddy was one of the original brothers from the Hole. His name was Charles Edward Moody. They called him Stretch. And that was in the early 60s, maybe 65, when the buildings first started opening up. My family, my father's family, which is his mother, they was one of the original people that moved in 5323, 1409. As I grew, as I came into play with my mom, I heard the stories about my dad, when he was away. And at that time, I felt that I had to uplift his name. He was away, like he was a street dude. After he grew up in the Hole. He knew a lot of people. He grew up protecting the Hole. Met Mickey in between that, and at the time, he was one of Mickey's finest in the Hole. You know what I'm saying? So when my dad moved away or he was in the street, he succumbed to the drugs. He became a dope fiend. So a lot of the old school brothers, they still honored him and respected him. So they used to sit me down and give me the stories about my dad, how he was a protector of the Hole, how he protected them when they first moved in. So at that time, for them to tell me that about my dad, I felt that I had to uphold his name.
I get it.
So I started doing the same things. So you had brothers that would tell me certain things, when I start noticing and being nosy, you got certain people that will tell me certain things and certain stories about not only my dad, but about Cobras. I wanted to be a part of what my daddy started.
I understand.
So when some of the old cats told me certain stories, I ran with it. Growing up, that was in my head. And right now, today, when I did the other show, I mentioned certain things. And it took a brother like Brother Napo and a few others to correct me because I misspoke on certain things. So me being the man that I am, if I'm wrong, I can stand here and say, I apologize. I'm a man before I'm anything. And one thing I'm not going to do is disrespect this brother because he's one of the overseers.
I get it.
You know, and I felt bad about that because one thing I'm not going to do is disrespect Nation, period.
I get it.
You know what I'm saying? Because I love it too much because I am who I am because of Nation.
I get it.
Because of the followings that I had.
I get it.
So I had to rebut. I could say I was wrong.
But what do you consider yourself to be wrong about?
Because there were certain things that were said that I said on that first show that wasn't true. Because
give it to me.
First, I misspoke on who killed our chief, about the situation about Jeff Ford. I was corrected. They corrected me on that. And it gave me more history and the structure that I was supposed to learn.
Beautiful.
But that's because when you have other people in your ear and you just running with it. Me being naive, I thought it was true because it came from them. But when a brother like Napo had to sit me down and let me know, hey, Ace, you wrong on that one. I'm gonna tell you this and tell you that. So I had to basically rebut what I said because it was wrong.
I get it.
And that's why I had to bring Brother Napo on so he can enlighten everybody, because not only me being misled, it's a lot of other brothers was being misled. So now I got somebody that was there.
Exactly.
Somebody that can tell you exactly from A to Z instead of going by what somebody else said. And maybe during that time of me growing and listening to some of these cats, I should have came to him. I should have came to some of the ones that was from the motherland and sit down with them and really get it, because you got people on the outside telling you one thing, but then I grow with that, and then when I speak up on it, it's misinformation. And one thing I'm not gonna do, like I say, I am who I am because of this thing, because of Chief, because of what the fundamental structures of what this nation was all about. So me and Napo was on the phone, he was re-educating me. So again, I'm gonna apologize to my brothers. And if I said anything that was false, I'm here to correct it. And so I got this brother here so he can educate everybody through the masses.
I get it. So let's walk back in time a little bit with brother. So how did you become involved in the organization? Hello, this is OG Mr. Rick from the Original OGs. If you live in a city, any city, big or small, and you would like for Mr. Rick to come to your town, get as many subscribers as you can in your town, go in the comments, let me know who your OGs are. They could be men or ladies, doesn't matter, as long as they have a great history, has the most subscribers, I will interview them. We won't pick them, you will pick them, so we'd like to tell those stories. This is the original OGs. Don't be mistaken by imitators. Let me know why Mr. Rick should come to your city and interview the OG ladies and the OG gentlemen. That's it. That's all.
No, nothing else compared to what he's got. He is the real.
here he is. You got me.
I totally get it. So we're talking about days of the before what they call Mickey Cobras.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go all the way back to what was it? The
Cobra Stones.
Cobra Stones.
Cobra Stones.
Before that, it was the Egyptian Cobras.
It was the Egyptian Cobras.
So your father came up at what time?
When they first started Cobra Stones.
Okay.
He was a Cobra Stone. That's when Mickey and Jeff Ford was,
They merged.
It was 1 and 2. You know what I'm saying? They merged together, and for a long time, the whole became headquarters.
Okay.
Princeton was the motherland. That's what Mickey basically, kids, family oriented. Then the whole was where all the brothers have the meetings, and we congregated, partied, we made sure everybody was fed. That's the concept that I grew up.
Right. So where was Mickey from?
Mickey was actually from what I'm hearing, he was from Princeton, but he originated from the West Side.
Okay.
Cabrini, his family, the Egyptian King Cobras, I think it was his uncle and then his dad, they formulated that. It was basically, to me, that was the first Black Power movement.
I get it.
The Egyptian, because it started from the 40s and 50s.
Okay. So did you ever go across the history of why they started that organization?
Yes. Well, the teachings I got from the old school brothers, it was basically family, unionizing, taking care of home, basically setting a foundation for the neighborhood, protecting your neighborhood, being a pillar of the neighborhood, not a killer of the neighborhood.
Right. Now, did all of this take its origin in Cabrini Green?
It started in Cabrini. That's before me, so the teachings I got, it formulated from the Greens, and then some situations that happened, which actually, Jewtown was actually the headquarters of the Mickey Cobras, back then Cobra Stones.
From my memory, the Cobras, they were always a kind of group that they dressed a stylish way. You know what I'm saying? They had that different flavor.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if that was because of Mickey or just the time frame in itself, but they always had that player look.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I was born and raised with that. Not just only from Mickey, but my parents. You always dressed to impress, because you never know who you're going to talk to that's going to offer you a job.
Exactly.
So when I got it in tune with being MC, when the only time I ever saw Mickey, I was maybe 2 or 3 years old, and he was suited and booted with a Dob. My next door neighbor, they was real cool with Mickey Caldwell, and he knew of my dad, and I remember him specifically saying, "Who's that?" And he was like, the neighbor, "Oh, that's Stretch son." He said, "Come here." And he picked me up by my shoulders. And back then, I used to be real bow-legged. And he looked at my leg. "Yeah, this Stretch son."
Put him on down.
Put me down. That Stretch son. Them legs,
Right.
Because my dad was very bow-legged. So I always saw all the older brothers. They was always suited and booted. Stacey Adams, 40s. They had the Dobbs, the Apples, they had the Rabbits, whatever. They always had a tie on.
Once again, stepping back a little bit, do you recall any incidents that was taught to you about the creation of the Cobra?
Yes. When I first started, actually, I was maybe 11 or 12, and I remember going to, some of the old guys was getting some of the young brothers to go to State and Lake. It was basically that was one of the first, day labor jobs. And few times I got the the little receipts to go to work at McCormick Place and other liquor stores. But when I came late, they used to bring me in the back because they knew my dad, and they used to teach me.
Who would teach you?
Well, one brother named Colonel Jed,
Okay.
Wilco, aka William Stratton, Cookie Stone, a few other ancient brothers that come from Princeton and the whole that used to be back there. And because they respected and loved my dad so much, they gave me that knowledge on how we supposed to carry ourselves.
Exactly.
Being late wasn't part of it. And that's the reason why they gave me the scolding.
Totally understood. So you yourself, you're in you were coming up in a transitional period.
Yes, sir.
Did they ever find out what the story was behind the death of Mickey?
I wasn't there, and I'm not going to sit here and say what was said or what wasn't said, but I knew from that point on, we separated, and we was just Cobras.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And then after Mickey's death, Pony Soldier, his brother, was the one actually changed the whole concept. We's Mickey's Cobras.
I totally get it.
From that point on, I wanted to learn what was the origin, what I'm representing.
Right.
And so I seek the knowledge from the old school cat, because a young cat couldn't tell me nothing.
I get it.
And so once I start networking with some of the old cats, they sat me down and told us rule one, we don't indulge in drugs. We don't rape. We don't we don't breaking and entering.
We don't pillage our own community.
We don't destroy our own village. If anything, he wanted us to organize, be unionized. He wanted us to keep a job, be extinguished gentlemen.
Right.
It wasn't about thugging, and if you even thought about it, you got dealt with.
And let me stop and say, Mickey, rest in peace, bro.
Man,
you know
that's
what I'm
chief.
saying? Hey, me personally, whatever journey it is, when they get at that level, they're just at that level.
Yes, sir.
And it is to be respected.
Period.
Regardless to what organization it is or was.
Yes.
That's to be respected.
Period.
Because
regardless.
that was a different fight,
Sir.
So what did they tell you the reason for Mickey getting involved in that situation?
For as being a community activist?
Yes.
Yeah, being a community. Well, he saw that what the neighborhoods lacked of. He pushed for more programmings, day camps, and he pushed for lunches during the summer, and he also wanted us to be educated. He wanted us to go to school, pick up a trade, get unionized, get into these unions, fight for what's right for our community, because he saw that it was multi-million-dollar companies around the hood, but it was very few African Americans in these companies.
Right.
So he stood on that. He went there as an advocate for us.
Exactly.
So that's the concept that I grew up on. He like I say, he barely drank.
Right.
Especially in public.
I get it.
Because he was an extinguished gentleman. He was very educated. And one thing he wanted to show that we didn't have to be, even though we live in the hood, we don't have to become the hood.
Right.
He wanted us to be basically kings of our own.
I totally get it. I totally get it.
And that's what the concept I fed off of.
Well, there's a story that says that the history of Mickey, he took over the numbers game in our community.
That's true.
Okay.
But he did that, and he took over, because if you look at the numbers games, who was running the numbers before black folk?
Well,
It was them Italians, it
Italian
was
guys.
Greeks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You had some Polacks that was in certain areas.
Right.
So he felt that he needed to take that and put it back in the community and be fair. And that's the thing, you know, and that's the concept that I got from the old school brothers. You know, believe in yourself.
Exactly.
And don't be a yes man. Don't be a follower, be a leader.
Exactly.
And from what the knowledge I got, that's what I wanted. I didn't want to be known as the Billy Bad in the community. I wanted to be somebody that struggled with you and made it to a certain point so I could reach back and grab somebody. I'm all about family.
That was the concept of the black community. You know, the black community at that time, especially in my life, it was about progress. You know, these organizations came together because they wanted black people to make progress. Because there was a grave disadvantage being pushed around in the community. And you had brothers like Mickey, and you had brothers like Larry and Jeff and David, King David, you know, all pushing toward that same idea.
It was all about family and learning and growing your community and putting back into your community. Regardless of what organization it was all about the family structure. Everybody got their own concepts, but it all stems to the same thing.
Exactly.
Neighborhood, family oriented, protecting your own, growing your own.
Exactly.
Black owned business, those mom and pops that, you know, Gladys's.
Hey,
You remember back them
come on,
Gladys's,
man.
you know, and just knowing that was our foundation. And that's the reason why I became MC.
I totally get it.
You know.
So now this thing transitions from the Cabrini Green to the whole.
Yes.
That's when you began to really
Indulge in it.
Yes.
Yes. All right. My early experience is how when I saw the injustices with the police, that's first and foremost.
Okay. So you go from Cabrini Green. I don't know if you go from Cabrini Green, but
The nation.
Cobras go from Cabrini Green to the whole. And the whole, that's what, 55th in state?
53rd in state.
53rd in state.
Yes.
Okay. And then you began to have your adolescent experiences.
Yes.
Inside the organization.
Yeah.
How did that first come about for you? Deciding that, hey, this is something that I want to be a part of.
Well, first, the respect that my daddy was getting every time I walked around one of the old schoolers, and they called me Little Stretch. You look like him, you talk like him, you walk like him. And that, even though my daddy was a street guy.
Explain that.
Well, you know, my daddy was one of the protectors of the whole.
Okay.
When some of the new guys moved in, and, you know, we had some guys that used to try to do the bullying, my daddy used to be the one that beat the bully up.
I get it.
You know, and a lot of people respected him for that because, you know, a lot of people was migrating from the South, you know, from other states, and that's where they was putting them. You know, it was the melting pot.
Exactly.
And my daddy, for a long time, held everybody down, you know, and then when Mickey came along, you know, Mickey found out how my daddy was with the people. You know what I'm saying? And that's how the respect with Mickey and my dad. So, you know, fast forward, I wanted to, even though my daddy was a street guy and, you know, he had his vices, you know,
hell,
that was my
America.
dad. That's
excuse me, but he was in America. That was his goddamn vice.
You know, that didn't hear, just to know I had a daddy, I was good with that. You know what I'm saying? So for my daddy to have that much respect with the older guys that actually basically, once my daddy, you know, did his thing. Now I'm there. Now I got
Right.
to uphold his legacy.
I totally get it.
So the guys was teaching me about the things that I didn't know about my dad. So now I got to uphold his name. So
Exactly.
now I got to be the one that beat the bullies. I
Okay.
got to be the one to take the brunt of the ass whoopings.
This is
You
a
know what I'm
family
saying?
tradition.
I'm not no straight up heads up. It was always 4, 5 guys.
Right.
And I went through that transition within the mob. You know, we
Exactly.
kids.
Yeah, I get
You
it.
know, just to get your stripes, you had to go through that. I'm not mad at that because that's what made me what I am today. And being around the old guys when they is, you know, drinking their little cognac and they CC and they
JB,
all of that.
you
But
dig?
behind the drinking was knowledge
I get it.
and how Mickey wanted it. You know what I'm saying? And one thing they stressed, education and no drug dealing.
Exactly.
And for a long time, I dwelled on that because I wanted to be an outstanding member,
I understand.
you know, and if it was fighting the police or back in the day, the ops, you know what I'm saying? When you find out the ops family is
Your family.
it's my family.
Yeah.
You know, I found out I had cousins all along, and I've been here 30 and 40 years, and they have bloodline. You know what I'm saying?
And you're fighting them.
And I'm fighting them.
Yeah.
And that's when it clicked. Now it's time for me to show them it's a different way.
Hey,
So I got into construction, you know, I got into, you know, being in these situations, being a voice for the people that was voiceless.
what about the bylaws of being a Cobra that gave you the foundation to walk toward a certain way of doing what we call right? Like you say, you went into working different jobs, creating your education, et cetera, et cetera.
Once I started going into, you know, we was having meetings where we are called literature service.
Okay.
First and foremost, you had to learn the prayer, you know, you had to learn the creed. And then we had laws that we had to abide by.
Okay.
And one of them was education.
Beautiful.
You know, one of them, it was also, you couldn't ditch school.
Right.
You know, it was basically household rules with a twang on it.
I totally
You
get
know
it.
what I'm saying? We shouldn't catch you out after 12 o'clock, especially if you're up under the age.
Exactly.
Unless you're being a minister with one of the brothers or your family.
Right.
You know, we couldn't disrespect our elders. We couldn't, you know, disrespect the ladies. You know, the sisters is our sisters. Without them, it's no us.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So it was basically family rules that had Mickey's name on it.
Okay.
And that's what gravitated because, first of all, I was a guy that loved sports. You know, I boxed, I played football, baseball, anything that kept me active and kept this going to seek more knowledge, I was on it.
Exactly.
And then I didn't want to get beat down by them old school brothers anyway, because they were saying, oh no, man, that was it for me. Especially representing my daddy.
Exactly. That was
So
all
it was a
another game.
double whammy for me personally.
Right. What made you want to become a part of the leadership of the Cobras?
Because I felt that I could show a difference. You know, I was, you know, it wasn't about being in charge, but exactly being a leader, because some of these kids was just left field, right field. You know, I was never a type of person to go snatch a purse.
Right.
So I wanted to show them the hustle that I had. Shine shoes, paperboy, you know, the bottles.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Always knocking on somebody's door. Do you need your trash? You know, them little twos and fews I had,
Please.
which it gravitated So seeing the older brothers starting it, I got to a certain age, the other brothers, I want you to come to Windy City Labors and we're going to get you a job.
Right.
And back then, $375 was a lot of money back then. And if you work at 8 to 10 hours, you coming home with $40 and $50, $60 that, maybe you had to do a little muscle, but
it was money.
It was money, and I was out of trouble for like 10 or 12 hours a day. So the police can't say I did anything.
But see, that's a very important point.
That's the thing, once I elevated to that, working at Ronnie's Steakhouse, McDonald's, I was able to get certain jobs, even on 51st Street, right next door to the Brown Derby, where I used to shine shoes at.
Right.
I was working at a little hair supply store. So I still saw them old school guys.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And they was giving me thumbs up.
Exactly.
Because they saw that I was doing something constructive instead of destructive.
I get it.
And that's the reason why I wanted to be a leader, because I wanted to grab some brothers. Come on, let's do this, let's do that. Let's go during the winter, during them 79, the winters. Let's go get some shovels, make that money.
Hey, for real, for real.
You know what I'm saying? When you saw death at a young age, and it was some of your homeboys that didn't even get a chance to be 13, 14 years old. It changed your whole mental.
It's traumatic.
It's traumatic. When I say it's mental health, that's mentally destroying you. And the only reason why I didn't crack, because I had people around me that wasn't letting me crack.
Exactly.
And when you see death, young brother, we playing basketball, and somebody called me from this building. Boom, you hear that? One of your guys that's an MC.
Right.
His head splattered all over the wall.
And you're just playing ball.
And we just playing ball. So I got tired of seeing that. I
get it.
So I had to step up, and I had to sometimes challenge some of the guys that was over me.
I get it.
Because, after a while, the drug trade.
Right.
But remember, our laws say we don't supposed to indulge in none of that.
Exactly.
Us.
Right.
I ain't talking about the old school guys. I'm talking about us that was being trained and taught not to go by mixed concepts.
Right.
Now y'all doing a whole 360. Nope. So now I'm challenging you. And I talked to Colonel, his name Colonel Jed, his last name Catchings. And me and him he was one of them old schools that respected my daddy, but that was also Mickey's finest.
Right.
He was the only person in the mob that had Colonel on his name. We can go back where it was Pharaoh 1, Pharaoh 2, Pharaoh 3, before they became Sultans and Sultan Supremes. Right. And all of that. So I was talking to Colonel, and Colonel saw my interactions with the guys. They saw that I fought for what was right. He saw that I wasn't scared to step up, and he gave me the chief enforcer spot. Right. He said, from now on, you go over there and tell them guys you're the chief enforcer. And if they got something to say, tell them to come and holler at me.
Right.
And guess what?
Ain't nobody
going there. Man, ain't nobody messing with Colonel.
No, Colonel.
Ain't nobody. That was it.
Exactly.
He had the respect, and his authority superseded a king.
I get it.
Especially a young king.
One of a kind.
One of a kind. You can't.
How does at that time, how does the Cobras intertwine with the other organizations that are existing?
Some of the Cobras' daddies, or ops, GDs, BDs, their daddies was Cobras.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? Because remember, from 53rd all the way to 45th Street, used to be all MCs.
Right.
Before, the older guys might have went to jail, and now some new cats then came up or opened up a whole new venue, whatever the case may be. But the guys that was GDs and BDs, vice lords, their daddies, their uncles was Cobra Stone.
Wow.
So we was family.
Right.
And then when you hear about Larry and Mickey was best friends through, you know, that covenant of Jeff Ford, Mickey, I already knew that Larry was one of the soldiers
I get it.
before he even was GD.
Right.
And I already heard about that story where, man, I want to be a brick.
So now let's clarify something. When you say Larry was a soldier, define that.
Well, he was actually a stone in a lot of people's eyes. He was a stone.
There's some discrepancy there.
I know, but I don't want to put nothing out there that I don't know exactly because I wasn't there. But Larry was very highly respected.
Oh, that's for sure.
In the Stone
Without
and
a doubt.
And Larry and Mickey was best friends.
And Larry and Jeff were communicating, and Jeff was trying to get Larry to be a part
of it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the story.
Actually, that is the story, because from what I heard from my old school guys, Mickey didn't want Larry to even indulge in that either. They had their own little conversation.
Okay.
And he's like, man, do you? I got your back. You know, if anything happened to me, take care of Prince Money. If anything happened to little Larry, or anything happened to me, take care of little Larry. So they became godfathers to each other's kids.
Okay. See, that's something that I don't think has hit the public.
They don't.
You know, and I think it sheds a whole nother light on the history of things, knowing that Larry and Mickey were best friends.
Best friends.
See, that conversation I have never heard, and I do a lot of research on all of this.
Yeah, they was even some of the ancient brothers today. They matter of fact, the day Mickey was killed, from what I was told, he was with the GDs gambling, you know, chilling, hanging out, and they escorted him home.
Wow.
And once they drove off, somebody came out of the woods and boom, there it is.
I'm going to get back to that story, but I want to clarify something before I go to that. What is a brick?
A brick, 21.
Okay.
21.
Okay.
The main 21.
Right.
That's the brick.
Okay. The bricks.
The bricks.
Right.
You know, where everybody stands.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's the structure of it.
That's the structure of the pyramid.
No, I get it.
And at the time, you know, from what I'm told, Larry wanted one of the bricks.
He wanted one of them?
He wanted to be a part of the brick.
Okay.
But how it unfolded was already established. Bro, go open up your own. We got your back. Full support.
Yeah, not out of animosity.
Not out of animosity. Matter of fact, we encourage you because he was one of the younger brothers up under them.
Exactly.
Just like me. You know what I'm saying? So I got nothing but admiration for Larry because I seen his concept too.
Oh, without a doubt.
You got to be open-minded to everything.
Because we don't all think alike.
Right. Because like I said, the way I think, it might not be like you, but we have to.
You know, you look in my mind and I'll look in yours.
Exactly.
And let's see where that relationship is.
So the 21 bricks is where everybody from Jeff Ford, Mickey, Bull, so on and so on. You know what I'm saying? My uncle, his name was Edgar Ross.
Okay.
He was one of Jeff Ford's finest. Did a lot of prison time, you know. He was a force to be reckoned with. That was my cousin's daddy.
Okay.
So my auntie, she was one of those stone girls back in her day. You know what I'm saying?
I get it.
My mama, they used to call her Bull because, you know, she was a Cobrette. Right now today, she'll say she not, but everybody knows she was Cobrette.
Well, out of respect to the family.
Our family, you know, was up under that that diamond.
Well, that was the origin of it all, and your
Yes.
father was playing a major role in it, so that
Yeah.
was just a natural course.
Yes.
You know.
So when I got into that and learning where, you know, Mickey Cobras had 9 branches of Cobras. After
Explain that.
okay, after the separation, you had you had Insane Mickey Cobras, you had Casanova Cobras, you had Aladdin King Cobras.
Sure did.
You know what I'm saying? You had Spanish Cobras. You had anything that had the Cobra name in it was up under Mick.
Okay.
Period. Latinos or black.
Right.
You know, a lot of people don't understand that, you know, today. So that's why I reached my hand out, my olive branch to, you know, Latinos that's calling themselves Cobra. Do you even know? You know,
Right.
learning both cultures. But when I started learning that, now I'm seeking more knowledge. What you know, I want to know. So when I get to talking, I don't want to talk outside my neck.
Exactly.
And then I got to deal with them brothers when I get home.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to know. I wanted to know the organizing part of it, how he was organizing people to get into. You know, people don't understand this. Mickey back then was trying to organize the unionized McDonald's back then.
Wow.
Before he passed on, he was trying to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because these was multi-million-dollar corporations in our neighborhood. Yeah, we could be the slave of flipping the burger, but you'll pay us $1.75
Right.
versus the manufacturers that's making the burgers for McDonald's was getting $7, $8 per patty.
That's crazy.
Come on. So I seen the demographics, what he was doing, hitting all these major companies because we was drowning in oppression.
Exactly.
And to be honest, Mick was he would have been the black mayor before Harold Washington.
Oh, I get it. So now, when I look back at Mickey's transition, you say he was dropped off and the folks had him protected and
Yes.
they delivered him safely.
At home.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden someone comes out of the bushes,
Woods.
whatever it is,
Yes.
and fires that particular shot or shots, and he transitions.
Yes.
Because he was involved in so many positive things, does it makes me question whether or not an outside source may have.
And that's my whole concept. When I first started trying to do a documentary about myself, I was invited to Jeff Ford's little brother's houses, Larry and Benny Ford.
Okay.
I had a conversation with them. And they older than me. And for them to cry tears, tell the snakes, man, Jeff Ford did not kill Mickey. He loved Mickey. He gave Mickey the nation when he went to jail.
Right.
And they kept enforcing that. We didn't do this. Stones don't do that.
Right.
Then I talked to some people that was still honoring Bull, that didn't honor Jeff.
Right.
But they honored Bull.
Right.
And they said the same thing. Even though we separated on that, Jeff Ford wouldn't have did that.
We don't get out like
We
that.
don't get out like. And then I go back to the ancient brothers that I know of. And I had to sit down with them. I'm not going to say no names.
Right.
And they said, brother, that's a whole beast. That ain't got nothing to do with Jeff. So that what made me believe, because he was so into all these organizations, that an outside source had something to do with that.
That seems suspicious to me.
Yeah, it does.
That's why I brought it up, because that doesn't pan out with me.
It don't.
You know what I'm saying? The circumstances were just out of place.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, these brothers were actually interacting with each other.
Even then.
And the story says that he was delivered safely, you know, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere,
Yes.
this happens.
Yes.
You know, looking at what he was trying to do for black people makes me question whether or not an outside force may have participated in that.
Yeah, and I could go a little deeper, but I'm gonna leave that at that.
I get it.
Because, you know, it's a lot of little stuff that's flying in the air that came to me. But because of my position, that's higher than me, so I'm gonna let them handle that.
Right.
But you best believe the people that did things for Mick, that served 20, 30 years, it's more than what you think.
My point exactly. So we'll leave that right there. I just wanted that to be said on camera. Because see, this is where we try to tell the black history of America in its purest light.
But in hindsight, that's why I wanted to be a leader.
I get it.
These guys, these young guys up under me or followed me, I wanted to show them something different. So when I started working for CHA, I was getting brothers jobs to the point I used to go to those meetings. And
which meeting?
CHA meetings when they was doing the transition.
Okay.
You know, during the 90s, beginning 2000s. And I used to tell them, you're not finna let these white boys come up in here and make this money and not hire nobody from the hood. You're gonna start seeing white people getting thrown out of windows. I was adamant about that.
And
you know what I'm saying?
Angry about it.
I was livid. Well, it's too much warring, and it don't matter. You give somebody a job and they getting $28.35 an hour. Do you really think they gonna chew the gun?
Say that again.
$28.35.
He's feeding his family now.
He getting a check every 7 days. $1,600 after tax.
Hiding. I don't think you're going to throw that away that fast.
So I became the site coordinator. But before I even got that job, it was a lady named Jeanette King. I was jamming. I fell into the drug trade.
I get it.
Her name was Jeanette King, and she was one of the site coordinators for Muhammad Ali Development Corp.
Okay.
That's when Muhammad Ali got involved with CHA.
Right.
And she walked up on me, and I'm jamming in the corner. And, you know, she's a sister, so I'm already, you know, I'm worried about big sister slapping me, you know, checking me. I said something
What
wrong.
Are you doing?
What did you doing?
Yeah.
And that's what she asked me. She said, what is you doing? I said, ma'am, you really want to know the truth? She said, I asked you, didn't I?
Right.
Check me quick. And, you know, the man went down to little boy status, you know? I say, I'm going to be honest, I'm selling drugs, but if you give me a job, because I had vets on, tablet.
Right.
I said, if you give me a job, this will be the last day I ever sell a bag of dope. She said, you for real? I said, yeah. Meet me at 4555 South Federal in the morning.
Wow.
Gave me a sheet of paper. This is what you need. A Carhartt suit, because it was transitioning to be cold.
Right.
Steel-toe boots, gloves, hard hat, your belt, tape measure. You need East Wing hammer. I know nothing about no damn East Wing hammer.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I still don't.
But I took my money that I was making off them drugs. And from that point on, I never sold another bag of dope, bruh.
I get it.
Because now I'm getting in a position where I'm doing what Mick always wanted us to get into. Is being in jobs, being unionized.
Right.
But, you know, being a pillar of the community.
Does that inspire something in you to add to your supreme leadership?
Yes, because I want to show them through the struggles that I've been through, you can still do it. I worked hard to get where I'm at today. I went from that to being an engineer, a maintenance director for a senior living home.
Right.
Nothing but rich folks. This ain't no Medicaid, Medicare building.
Right.
This is a retirement home with rich folks.
Right.
So, yes, I'm representing Mick in that building.
I get it.
because I'm the man, I'm the chief.
Right. So you set out to set the example for younger men to represent Mickey in an honorable way.
Yes.
Yeah. And I sense that you still do that.
I does that now because you got to reflect. We went through a lot of wars, unnecessary wars in them projects.
Right.
A lot of brothers from all divisions of gangs. I call them the heads of state.
Okay.
They are the heads of state.
I get it.
Give them their title.
I get it.
And a lot of brothers, I don't care what you represented, died over senseless killings.
Totally get it.
And it was wars that they really didn't need to be a war because 99% of the time it was over a female.
I totally get it.
It ain't that I walked over there on they set and started selling dope.
Right.
It was always that little girl everybody wanted. And she had a chance to come down on our end, pillow talk, and then go back down there and pillow talk. And now somebody's ego is hurting.
I totally
Now
get it.
brothers dying, babies are dying, kids, babies younger than me in the window shooting guns when they don't even supposed to be. That's not
Don't even know how to handle a gun.
right, and that ain't the concept that I grew up off of.
I totally
Even
get
though I was out there, that wasn't that concept.
I totally get it.
So I had to make a change, and yeah, preaching to the choir ain't gonna do it. So you got to lead by example.
I totally get it.
Yes. I didn't sacrifice my life for a lot of this stuff here.
In your journey, give me your opinion on where things began to go bad.
To be honest, when the drugs infiltrated the mob, because the mob, I'm not going to even say the mob, I'm going to say organizations. When the drugs infiltrated the organizations, the meetings wasn't about uplifting the nation and doing good for the community.
Right.
You know, it was all about how many bundles do mess up. The whole service is about he owed me this. That's personal.
Right.
And when that infiltrated the nation, all the concept of what Mickey was talking about went out the window, because now versus getting a job, if you got $1,000 pack and you can get it off in 15, 20 minutes, you know, and even I fell into that transition. But after a while, you know, you're looking at these same people and you see the drugs eating them up. And one thing that really stopped me from even indulging and really getting into working, it was a little 11-year-old girl, and I'm out there jamming. And I see her sitting on a stump. But, you know, I got all these weirdos. I'm like, you know, crackheads, you know, the functioning addicts. And then you got them little ones that's just walking around like zombies.
Right.
You know, but this little girl is here. And one thing we ain't finna do is have this girl on a milk carton. Because now she in my possession, in my area. So I'm watching her. And, you know, the traffic was heavy. And then all of a sudden the traffic got slow. And I look down there, I say, baby girl, what you doing out here early in the morning? It's like 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. And she looked at me and she just bust out crying. I'm hungry. Ooh, antennas went up. I closed shop. I told the brothers, let's go. Where you live at? I live in 1306. Went right up there, banging on the door. Boom, 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 boom. They knew who I was.
Right.
Who is it? Ace. The mama and the daddy. What's going on, Ace? What's going on? They old dope fiends. I said, your baby girl out here and she hungry. I bust in their house, open up the refrigerator, they had a 48-inch deep freezer with only cold water in it.
Understood.
You open up the freezer, ain't nothing but a stick of butter.
Understood.
So I had all these food stamps before they transitioned to the car.
I get it.
I see, I got all this stuff, and I'm like, this ain't even my money. That's how I'm thinking.
Right.
Because the more money I'm making, I'm giving it away because it ain't my money.
Right.
How could I be happy about something that ain't mine?
Because you
So
have different principles.
I'm on a different level, and I'm knowing I'm breaking law.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I know
point-
what the old schoolers told me.
To the point that you got a child hungry.
Hungry. So I took all 3 of the oldest ones. I said, can they go with me? They said, yeah. We're going over. We had a store right across the building called Starlight, black owned. And I told all 3 of them, get a buggy. Fill it up. Get whatever you want. While they filling it up with their little jujus and wham whams, I'm in the back. They had the, what was it? The $98 meat pack.
Right.
The $199 meat pack and the $249 meat pack.
Right.
I went right to the $249 because I got $2,000-$3,000 worth of stamps.
Right.
Give me them meat packs.
Right.
By the time then I told the brothers, help them with the groceries. Let's go up. So we even start putting it in the cabinets.
Wow.
And I told the mama and the daddy, if you sell a pack of bologna, I'm gonna break your damn neck, just like that. Oh no, Ace. Them kids were so happy because they had food. That's the gratification that I liked.
Right.
That's why, that was another reason why I had to get away from them drugs, because I was taking away a family.
You're destroying a family.
I'm destroying them by feeding them this negativity. And how could I be an outstanding member when I'm destroying the very neighborhood that I'm fighting for? You know what I'm saying?
You're supposed to be fighting for.
Supposed to. Because, Mick, again, in my head,
Right.
this is what we supposed to do.
We're here to build. That's why we have a pyramid with bricklaying.
There you go. And that's the reason why I do what I do, because I'm not into the tearing down business, because we already been destroyed.
Oh man, come on now.
You know, the drugs destroyed a lot of our families. It destroyed my daddy. My daddy was a junkie, and I loved him dearly.
It comes back home.
So one thing he taught me, not to be like him.
Then and now, twofold question.
Yeah.
What is the reputation of the Mickey Cobras?
Today?
Today and then.
Then we was extinguished gentlemen. Now we just a lost tribe, because a lot of brothers not doing what you actually representing. And I'm not throwing shade on my mob, but some of the old school guys are dying off. Now it's us to reboot that.
Exactly.
And show a different example. Now we got brothers that's doing certain things. Some are electricians, showing other brothers, like, you know, some brothers are doing air conditioning work, but the vast majority of them, they still on the block, and they're my age.
Right. That's crazy.
And you still doing the same thing, still talking about the same thing. You're not helping the growth of the nation.
Exactly. Here's a very vital, and you look in that camera and you explain it. How would you say to the younger people out there that are affiliated, representing Mickey, what would be to their advantage in navigating in this society in order to escape the demise that exists among us today?
Get out the hood. See life outside that block you on. Venture into something that you always wanted to get involved with, but was scared to. Take that leap of faith, because only thing can happen is a yay or a nay. And you're going to get more nays than yays. But if you keep at it, you're going to have trials and errors. Just keep at it. And one day, it's going to be an opportunity that you can't resist.
So how do they prepare their skill set in order to meet that day?
Education. Get into trade school. Get into something that's going to, some pilot programs. It's all about networking yourself. Make a resume. The things that you know versus the things you don't know. Put your resume out there. Dress to impress. I ain't not like this, but always be prepared to talk to somebody in an educational and a professional way, because it ain't what you know, it's who you know. And if you talk like you got some sense, you best believe somebody gonna give you opportunity. Take it from me. Somebody gave me an opportunity.
A cat that's on the streets and he's selling drugs, and he's pretty much stuck into what he's doing in his mind. How would you advise him or her to transition from that?
Whatever little money you making, go get your bus card. Get you or buy you some type of vehicle. If you're doing that, and if you want to transition out, get your license straight, get you a bus card or a vehicle, and start venturing out. Get on Indeed, get on LinkedIn. Talk to people that's in certain jobs that you might want to get. If your background cleaner or you got it expunged, hey, do what you got to do to take the initiative to get from one, because ain't no 401k plan in drugs and drug dealing. Jail or dead. And you always gonna have somebody that's gonna be in your pockets. So if you want to transition, take the initiative and start venturing outside the hood. And the money you making, invest it in a car or a bus card.
King Von. How do we define that and try to explain to them that we're your brothers?
When it comes down to them young brothers, King Von, Lil Durk, and all of them OTF guys, I'm not here to scold you all. Y'all see the situation that just dissing somebody, or y'all on these ego trips, and you trying to do music, and you intertwine in the streets with your music. It's okay to tell a story about your upbringing and how you came up. But when it gets to a point where you're disrespecting somebody, you're putting yourself out there that you're a killer, you're brandishing all these guns, you actually putting yourself out there as a target. I'm not mad. I'm not putting nobody down, because I am you.
That's what I'm talking about.
I am you. I ain't no big eyes on little U's. I hung in on O Block way before when other people was in play. I went to Betsy Ross. So I am you. I'm just telling you, brothers, it's time to make a change, do a 360. Camera check yourself. Can't nobody camera check you but yourself. Camera check yourself. Camera check the way you're displaying or presenting yourself. I'm not telling you to double down, but I'm telling you to be smarter in the decisions that you make. That's it.
If you're young and you're fortunate, you'll be sitting where we're sitting at.
Yes.
And you'll have a different outlook on life. You're looking at two people that have been through the bullshit of the bullshit. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And we say that leading to another question that's a very interesting question. We got a lot of people on podcasts and different whatever they call them, and they're talking about the events that go on in Chicago. Not knowing the circumstances in Chicago.
Right.
How would you address that and the outlook of it?
When it comes to negativity, right?
That's all they talk about.
Oh, yeah, one thing about Chicago, we're a family oriented. It's a family design place, and yes, we got people that have egos, but one thing about it, It's all love if you really get to understand Chicago.
No, I totally get it.
You know, because what you hear on the outside ain't what it is in the inside. And you think it's people outside of Chicago thinking that it's beef everywhere. No, it's pockets of little guys that's got their own little cliques and crews that's, doing certain things. In the whole, every organization, they'll be standing right here beside, we don't condone it. And if we had a chance or opportunity to get on top of that before it actually happened, it'd be a lot of these little young boys with little pumpkin heads right now, because they renegades. They're not plugged with
I totally get it.
MCs, GDs, BDs, Vice Lords, or whatever. They're not plugged. They screaming it because that's their shield of protection, because they know they got cousins or brothers that's actually Vice Lords. But you little young kids out there or young adults, y'all really think y'all got it? Y'all just feeding what Cook County want, that meat, and you fresh meat.
What the penitentiary want.
Yeah, because Bubba loved taking people's cornbread.
Hey, man, I want to say to young people, if you watch this show, and if you watch the original OGs, period, hey, man, go and have a conversation with yourself. I didn't want anyone to know how lost I really was. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
But the conversations with myself,
we totally did.
I had a whole nother concept about what I wanted life to be like. And you have to get to the point to whereas you become your best friend and you have some real conversations with yourself and you make some commitments to yourself.
Right.
And you begin to strive to do something better for yourself. Because the person that's trying to influence you is really hiding and masking their own bullshit. You understand what I'm saying? But there are some brothers that draw me in, and then there are times that they have conversations and I'm just not feeling them. Shout out to my man Whack 100. He does a lot of things that creates a conversation in certain lights, and the conversations will engage in that I don't benefit of, that I say to myself, I don't think that's going to benefit us as a people. How do you see some of these people?
Well, when you got some of these podcasts, it's like Whack 100, the Live TV, they want to get into the negativity of the certain beefs. They try to feed you these things so you can be able to be negative. You pushing out negativity. Shouts out to them guys but at the end of the day, what are you really trying to do?
Right.
Are you trying to inspire somebody, or are you just trying to fuel the fire and so it could be some type of content, negative content? We got too much of that going on now, with the streets, TV, radio, that, if you keep
poking the bear.
Poking it. And what you think that bear gonna do?
Shit, slap that shit out of you.
It's gonna claw you. So let's take these situations and these podcasts and if you got an audience and you got a following, let's flip the script and show positivity, the growth and the movement on how people got to where they at. Just like the young brother, Young Thug, that just got out of jail. He facing all that time. He, just to get out, he pled guilty to some things, and they gave him a get out of free jail, as long as he got the convictions on his back.
Right.
Now he got a story to tell. He could tell the story how he was in there, how people was against him versus people that was with him. And
Totally get it.
and how that whole transition of you got black women that were state's attorneys, they didn't want to, they put them to be humiliated because now you done messed up your career, and here it is, he's been vindicated in some way. You know what I'm saying? And you putting black people together against each other.
No, I get it.
And y'all got to understand, this is what they want.
This is the system.
Because they know we are beasts. We are the kings of these worlds and queens of this world. They know we are the nuts and bolts of what's going on today. And if we can all put our hands together and band hands and get together and be a united front, this world will be a better place, you know? And I just want these young cats to take what y'all see on TV and really look at it for what it is, not for what it shows or what it does, because it don't show you nothing but negativity. Why do you think they putting it out there? To obscure your mind from really looking at the bigger picture.
I think Wack 100 is a very intelligent guy, and I think that he could be very instrumental in uplifting our young people. You know, once again, shout out to you, brother. Then we mentioned Vlad, No Jumper.
Yeah.
The thing I can say to them, especially No Jumper, is I don't give two fucks about what you're talking about.
Exactly.
I'm just keeping it real with you.
Yeah.
You know, if you're trying to take our people, our young people, and you're trying to bring out all the negativity so that our young people can create a place of hate in their heart for their own people, then, you know, my thing is, fuck you.
Right. And you need to be dealt with because, you know,
Life gonna deal with it.
come on to Chicago and play that joint.
Don't even come around here, man.
I
That's
swear.
all I'm saying. Just go about your business, man. I don't even have time for that shit.
You know,
I'm just saying, you know, hey, you brothers that are growing into a position of power, whereas our young people are listening to you, you know what I'm saying? Let's try to take that and use it to develop our young people so that they can become better people and lean toward the goal of becoming great people.
Great, yeah.
You know, I mean, that's where I'm at with it. Being in that space, brother, how would you define an OG?
OG, I define an OG as a person that had experience, had life journeys, a person that went through the struggle and been through it and came on the other end victorious. You know, that got something to teach me.
Exactly.
Teach me. I'm never too old to learn. You know what I'm saying? I want the OG is a person that will keep it real with you. He's not gonna sugarcoat it. He's not gonna just be your friend. Yeah,
right.
He ain't gonna keep the knowledge to himself. He gonna actually, if you want the blueprint, here it is. It's up to you to accept it.
Hey, man.
And that's an OG to me.
I had bumped into my deep. And he was not in the greatest of shape.
Yes, sir.
And it broke my heart.
Yes, sir.
Because he was a brother that put so much work into the community in the beginning of the organizations to help build something powerful and positive for Vice Lords, that it broke my heart to see him to have been subjected to the conspiracy that was aimed at us, which is the drug conspiracy.
Yes, sir.
I've been there. I've done that. You see some of the older guys and they've been wounded in the battle. You know, you can still learn something from these brothers. You know, they weren't, no one was born a dope fiend.
No.
And then we need to look at those guys and extract what was positive about them. Take the rest of that and throw that shit in the garbage. With that, I want to tell you, hey man, don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, whatever it is. You know, I'm going to say, brother, thank you very much.
Yes, sir,
You know what
brother.
I'm saying? I enjoyed the journey.
Yes, sir,
You know what I'm saying? I hope the audience takes something from it.
Yes, sir.
You know, and as I always say when I depart from you, hey, a whole lot of love. That's it. That's all.
That's all.